My daughter-in-law went on a trip and forbade me from getting close to her plants. "Do not touch them," she told me before leaving. Unintentionally, I tripped and knocked over the most expensive planter. When I saw what was hidden among the roots, I felt like the world was crashing down on me. Now I understand why she did not want anyone getting close. The next day, I made a decision that would change everything. I called my lawyer. For 3 years, I lived like a stranger in my own house. Humiliated and controlled by a woman I called daughter, but who turned out to be my worst nightmare. She made me sign papers I did not understand. She forbade me from entering rooms in my own home. And she convinced me that my 67-year-old mind was no longer good for anything. "It is for your own good, sweetie," she would say to me while stealing everything I had built over 40 years of marriage. But on Tuesday, October 15th, when I tripped over that $2,500 planter that I was forbidden to touch, I discovered a truth so terrible that it almost killed me from the shock. Among the roots of that damn orchid, I found falsified documents with my signature, my mother's jewelry that I had lost, and something that froze my blood, a detailed plan to murder me and collect $500,000 in insurance money. That is when I understood why she did not want anyone approaching those plants, and why the next day I took the decision that would change everything. I called my lawyer. I am Catherine Hope Miller. I am 67 years old, and until 2 months ago, I believed that respect was earned with age and affection with sacrifice. How wrong I was. My story begins in that 2-story house in the heart of Austin, a house that I built brick by brick together with my late husband Alexander. 40 years of memories of family Christmases, of first communions and sweet 16s, a house that was worth $350,000 according to the last appraisal. But for me, it was priceless. Everything changed when my son, Richard, my only son, my prince, came home with that woman, Valerie St. James. That is how she introduced herself. 35 years old, a smile out of a soap opera, a model's body, and a way with words that could convince the devil to buy ice. "What a beautiful house, Mrs. Catherine," were her first words, while her calculating eyes took inventory of every piece of furniture, every painting, every detail that screamed money. In less than 6 months, they had married in secret. "It was something intimate, Mom. You know how Valerie is. She does not like a scandal," Richard explained to me with a smile that was no longer the same. My son had changed. The man I had raised alone after becoming a widow, who brought me flowers every Sunday, who never missed our Friday dinners, now looked at me as if I were a burden. "Catherine." Valerie told me one day, already installed in my house as if it were hers, "I think we need to modernize some things here. This house has so much potential." Thus began my nightmare. First they were small changes. New furniture, more functional, which cost $15,000. A security system to protect you, sweetie, for $8,000. Renovation of the kitchen because the other one was too old for $25,000. "Where's the money coming from?" I asked innocently once. "Oh, Catherine, did you already forget? It is the savings you gave me to manage. Remember that you signed the papers. Your pension barely reaches enough for your medications." What papers I did not remember having signed anything, but Valerie had a way of making me doubt my own memory. "Age is affecting you, sweetie. It is normal. That is why I am here to take care of you." Slowly, I turned into a stranger in my own home. I could not touch certain objects because they were too delicate. I could not enter the guest room because they had converted it into a private office. I could not receive visitors without warning beforehand because it altered the routine of the house. But the plants were her biggest obsession. They arrived one day in special trucks, exotic orchids, carnivorous plants, rare species that needed very specific care. She placed them in Italian ceramic planters that, according to her, had cost $2,500 each. "These plants are my investment for the future, Catherine." No one, absolutely no one, can touch them. Do you understand? They are very valuable and very fragile. Her look when she told me that was not of care for the plants. It was a warning, a threat. During 2.5 years, I lived that routine. Waking up, taking my medications, which now Valerie controlled, eating breakfast in silence, cleaning only the permitted areas, eating lunch alone, watching television in my room, eating dinner in silence, sleeping like an employee in my own house. Until that cursed and blessed Tuesday when everything changed forever. To understand how I came to live like a prisoner in my own home, I have to tell you how I met that viper with the face of an angel. It was December of 2021. Richard had just turned 42 years old, and I was worried because he was still single. "Son," I would tell him, "it is time for you to settle down. I want to meet my grandchildren before my time runs out." He would laugh and say to me, "Mom, when the right one arrives, you will be the first to know." What a big lie. He met her in a casino. That should have been the first alarm signal. But at that moment, it seemed like destiny to me. Valerie worked there as a coordinator of special events for VIP clients. According to what Richard told me, she helped him when he lost $5,000 in a bad night of poker. She consoled me, Mom. She told me that successful men like me should not torture themselves over these small losses. What was only money, small losses? $5,000 was more than what I spent in 4 months, but Richard had his auto parts import business, and according to him, things were going very well. The first time he introduced her to me was on New Year's Eve. She arrived to dinner with a red dress that must have cost more than my mortgage heels that looked like knives, and a smile that lit up the whole room. "Mrs. Catherine," she said to me, taking my hands with hers, "Richard has spoken to me so much about you. He says you are the strongest and wisest woman he knows." She melted me. It had been years since anyone spoke to me like that with such genuine admiration. Or so I believed. During dinner, she told me her story. An orphan since she was 15, she had worked 3 jobs to study business administration. "I always dreamed of having a family like yours," she told me with tears in her eyes. "A mother who loves you unconditionally, a home full of beautiful memories." What a performance. She deserved an Oscar. The first months were perfect. Valerie arrived on the weekends with flowers. She helped me cook, although now I know she was only memorizing my recipes. And she made me feel as if I had gained not only a daughter-in-law, but a daughter. "Catherine," she would say to me while we peeled potatoes together, "I would like to learn all your cooking secrets. I want Richard to always have the taste of his home, no matter where he is." She would ask me about my past, about family traditions, about my jewelry. How beautiful. Surely they have a lot of sentimental value, about important documents. "Richard told me that you handle your finances very well. It gives me a lot of peace of mind." In March of 2022, Richard arrived one Monday night with news that broke my heart. "Mom, I need to tell you something. Valerie and I got married on Saturday." "How is it that you got married without telling me, without inviting me?" "It was something very intimate, Mom. Only 2 witnesses. You know that Val does not like big ceremonies. Besides, we wanted to save that money for more important things. More important than including the groom's mother. But I swallowed my pain and congratulated them. After all, the only thing I wanted was to see my son happy." "There is something else," continued Richard, avoiding my gaze. "Valerie needs a temporary place to live. Her apartment flooded last week and she lost everything. Could we stay here just a few months, just until we find something?" "Of course, son. This will always be your house." Error number 1. Believing that it would be temporary. Error number 2. Not realizing that Valerie never mentioned that flooded apartment before. Error number 3. Not investigating why a woman with a stable job did not have home insurance. The few months turned into 3 years of hell that was barely beginning. If you ask me what my biggest error was, it was not trusting Valerie. My biggest error was doubting my own instincts when every fiber of my being screamed at me that something was terribly wrong. The first signal was subtle. 15 days after moving in, I noticed that my engagement ring was no longer in my jewelry box. It was a solitaire of half a carat that Alexander had given me 45 years ago. It was not the most expensive in the world, but for me, it was worth everything. "Have you seen my engagement ring?" I asked Valerie while we prepared breakfast. "Which ring, sweetie?" "The diamond one. I always leave it in the little blue box in the jewelry case." I saw something strange in her look, a blink that was too fast, a smile that was too forced. "Oh, Catherine, could it be that you put it away in another place? Sometimes when we get older, we forget things." Those words, "when we get older," as if being 67 years old automatically turned me into a senile crazy woman. I searched the whole house for 3 days. Nothing. "Richard," I told my son. "My ring disappeared." "Mom, surely it is around somewhere. It will appear." But it never appeared, just as my grandmother's pearl earrings did not appear 2 weeks later, nor the gold necklace that my sister gave me when I turned 60. "Catherine." Valerie told me with that condescending voice that I was beginning to hate. "Maybe you should consider putting your jewelry in a safety deposit box. At your age, it is easy to misplace valuable things." Second signal, the strange bills. I had always handled the house accounts. 40 years paying electricity, water, phone, property taxes. I knew every dollar that came in and went out. But suddenly bills began to arrive that I did not understand. $1,200 monthly from a financial consulting firm, $800 for administrative services, $2,000 from an insurance company that I had never hired. "What is this?" I asked Valerie, showing her a bill for $3,500 from something called Comprehensive Wealth Management. "Oh, sweetie, did you already forget it is the services we hired to optimize your finances? Remember that you signed the authorization." "When did I sign that?" "Last month when we went to the bank. Do you not remember the manager said it was very important to protect your assets?" I did not remember having gone to any bank, but was my memory betraying me? That much lately, third signal. The forbidden rooms. My house had 4 bedrooms. Mine, Richard, and Valerie's, one that had always been the guest room and another that I used as a sewing workshop. One day I wanted to enter the guest room to look for some sheets, and the door was locked. "Why is it locked?" I asked. "It is my office now," responded Valerie without looking up from her cell phone. "I work from home and I need privacy. I hope you understand. Her office in my house. Without asking me, but I need to go in. My things are stored there." "I already moved everything important to your closet. The rest was just old trash that I threw away." Old trash. In that room were the photos of my youth, the letters that Alexander wrote me during our courtship, the first drawings by Richard when he was a child. "You threw away my memories. Catherine, you cannot live in the past forever. This is for your own good." Fourth signal, the social isolation. I had always been a social woman. My friends from the prayer group came to visit me on Wednesdays. My sister Hope ate lunch with me every Sunday. The neighbors stopped by to drink coffee and chat, but slowly Valerie began making excuses. "Catherine, your friends make a lot of noise. The neighbors have complained. Your sister stresses you out too much. The doctor said you need tranquility for your blood pressure. The neighbors are very gossipy. It is better to maintain our family privacy." After 6 months, my house, which had always been full of laughter and conversations, had become a deathly silence. Fifth signal, the control of the medications. "Sweetie," she told me one day, "I am going to take charge of organizing your medicines. I have noticed that sometimes you forget to take them." It was a lie. I never forgot. But suddenly, my pills for blood pressure changed brands. "They are generic," she explained, "exactly the same, but cheaper." Since then, I always felt dizzy, confused, weak. Now I know why. The day I felt the most shame in my 67 years of life was a Thursday, August 18th of 2022. That day, Valerie made me feel like the senile, useless, and helpless old woman she needed me to be to execute her master plan. It all started with a phone call at 7 in the morning. "Catherine!" shouted Valerie from the kitchen. "The bank is calling you. They say it is urgent." I took the call with trembling hands. Lately, everything seemed urgent and threatening to me. "Mrs. Miller." It was a masculine, serious voice. "This is Mr. Martinez from the National Bank. We need you to come immediately. There are grave problems with your accounts." "What kind of problems?" "I cannot explain it over the phone, ma'am. It is a very delicate matter. Can you come before 10? I hung up the phone with my heart racing. Problems with my accounts. I was very careful with my money. I had never had banking problems. "What is wrong, sweetie?" asked Valerie with that fake concern that I already knew so well. "They say I have problems with my accounts at the bank." Oh my God, I knew this was going to happen. "What do you mean?" "Catherine, forgive me for telling you this, but I have noticed that lately you are very confused. Last week you tried to pay the electricity twice. The day before yesterday you did not remember having eaten breakfast, and yesterday you asked me the same question 3 times. It was not true. None of that was true. But the way she said it with such certainty made me doubt my own reality. "Come," she said to me, taking me by the arm. "I will accompany you to the bank. You cannot handle this alone." In the car, Valerie did not stop talking. "Catherine, I want you to know that Richard and I have been very worried about you. The other day you found the stove on and did not remember having turned it on. That is very dangerous." The stove on when had that happened. "And not only that," she continued, "yesterday you went out in your nightgown to the store. Mrs. Lopez called me very worried. That was impossible. I never—" My head was spinning. The new medications had me very confused lately. We arrived at the bank and Mr. Martinez was waiting for us with a serious face. He was a man of about 50 years, elegant with gold glasses. "Mrs. Miller, thank you for coming. Unfortunately, we have a serious problem." He showed me some papers full of red numbers. "Your account is overdrawn by $47,000. You've been making very strange withdrawals and transfers in the last few months. Look." He pointed to an interminable list of transactions that I did not remember having authorized. "This cannot be," I whispered. "I did not do this." "Catherine," intervened Valerie, holding my hand. "The doctor warned me that this could happen. Memory problems sometimes cause this type of episodes." The banker nodded with understanding. "It is more common than you think, Mrs. Miller. Age sometimes plays these cruel tricks on us." I felt as if I had been slapped. Did everyone believe I was crazy? "What can I do?" I asked with a broken voice. "Well," said the banker, exchanging a look with Valerie, "your daughter-in-law has explained the family situation to me. She could be your legal power of attorney to handle your finances. It is a very practical solution for these cases." "Power of attorney?" "Yes, Catherine," said Valerie with a sweet voice. "It would be temporary only until you feel better. I would take charge of paying the bills, handling the expenses, organizing everything. You would not have to worry about anything." They put a pile of papers in front of me. Small letters, legal terms I did not understand. "You must sign here," the banker indicated to me. "And here too. And here." What am I signing exactly? "They are just banking authorizations, sweetie," Valerie reassured me, "so that I can help you with your accounts." My hand trembled while I signed. 1, 2, 5, 10 times. "Perfect," said the banker. "This will solve all your problems, Mrs. Miller." When we left the bank, I felt empty, humiliated, useless. "Do not worry, Catherine," Valerie told me in the car. "This is for the best. Now you will be able to rest peacefully without worrying about money." That night I cried in silence in my bed. In a single day I had lost my financial independence, my dignity, and my confidence in my own mind. What I did not know was that I had also signed the transfer of my house to Valerie's name, several life insurance policies, and an authorization for her to make all medical decisions for me. I had signed my own death sentence. After finding those cursed documents among the orchid roots, I spent the whole night awake staring at the ceiling. I could not stop shaking. It was not just fear, it was a cold anger that burned my insides. During 3 years she had made me believe that I was losing my mind, that my age turned me into a burden, into a nuisance, into a pathetic old woman who could not take care of herself. But finding that note, written by her own hand, changed everything. The old woman is weaker every day. The blood pressure medications are working. The doctor says that a strong emotional shock could cause her a heart attack. Maybe it is time to accelerate the process. She was poisoning me. The constant dizziness, the mental confusion, the weakness I felt every day. It was not age. It was Valerie giving me altered medications to keep me vulnerable and confused. That early morning, for the first time in years, my mind was completely clear. And with that clarity came a decision that changed me forever. I was not going to be the victim of this story. At 6 in the morning, while Valerie slept in Miami believing herself safe, I took my phone and dialed a number that I had saved for months. Attorney Harrison. Yes, who is speaking? Catherine Miller. I need your help urgently. Attorney Fernando Harrison had been a co-worker of my late husband at the notary office. Alexander always told me, if you ever have serious legal problems, Catherine, call Fernando. He is the only honest lawyer I know. Catherine, what is wrong? It is 6 in the morning. Fernando, I think my daughter-in-law is robbing me of everything and plans to kill me. There was a long silence. Catherine, are you sure of what you are telling me? I have proof, falsified documents with my signature, stolen jewelry, altered medications. Fernando, I need you to come to my house today, but in secret. My life depends on this. I will be there at 10. Do not touch anything until I arrive. I hung up the phone, and for the first time in 3 years I felt empowered, but I knew I had to act like the confused old woman Valerie expected me to be. When Fernando arrived, disguised as a cable technician, to not raise suspicions, I showed him everything. The falsified documents, the hidden jewelry, the note with the plan to murder me. Good God, Catherine, this is attempted homicide and major fraud. Do you have any idea how much money she has stolen from you? We reviewed all the papers I had signed that terrible day at the bank. The reality was worse than I imagined. Catherine, your house is no longer in your name. It is registered in Valerie's name since 8 months ago. How is that possible? Among the papers you signed that day was a donation deed. They deceived you completely. And the money, you have donated $127,000 of your savings to different accounts controlled by her. Besides, there are 3 life insurance policies for a total of $800,000. All with her as the beneficiary. I sat on the sofa with my legs trembling. $800,000. My life was worth $800,000 to that woman. Fernando, what can I do? Is it too late? No, Catherine. But we need to act with a lot of intelligence. If she suspects that you know the truth, she could accelerate her plans. We have to gather more evidence and set a perfect trap. What do you need me to do? First, we are going to change your medications without her noticing. I have a doctor friend who will help us. Second, we need to record compromising conversations. And third, we have to find her other victims. Other victims? Catherine, a scammer of this level, never operates just once. Surely there are more families who have gone through the same thing. He gave me a small recording device. Use it when you speak with her on the phone. And remember, you must act exactly the same as always. Confused, weak, dependent. Your life depends on that acting. For the first time in 3 years, I smiled with true hope. The war had begun, and this time I had the weapons. The following 3 days were the longest of my life. I had to act like the confused old woman that Valerie expected, while inside I boiled with courage and determination. Attorney Fernando had gotten me the correct pills for my pressure, identical in appearance to the ones Valerie gave me, but without the sedatives that had me like a zombie. For the first time in months, my mind was completely awake. On Wednesday morning, Valerie called me from Miami. "Hello, sweetie, how are you? You have not touched my plants, right?" I activated the recorder that Fernando had given me. "No, honey, I have not gotten close at all." I lied to her with a weak voice. "Although one of the orchids looks a little yellow." "Catherine, did I not tell you not to even look at them?" Sorry, it is just that when I clean the living room, I see them out of the corner of my eye." "Oh, sweetie, sometimes you drive me to despair. Good thing I am returning soon to take care of you properly." The words, "take care of you properly," froze my blood. Now I knew exactly what they meant. That afternoon, Fernando arrived with a woman of about 40 years, dark-haired, with a serious but kind face. "Catherine, let me introduce you to Attorney Patricia Ruiz, a private detective specialized in family fraud." "Mrs. Miller," Patricia said to me, "Attorney Harrison told me your case. Unfortunately, it is not the first one I have seen." She showed me a folder full of photographs and documents. "Do you recognize this woman?" It was Valerie, but with blonde hair and different makeup. She called herself Monica Herrera in Chicago. She convinced a 72-year-old widower to marry her. 3 months later, the gentleman died of a heart attack, and she inherited his trucking company, valued at $2.3 million. My stomach turned. Is there more? In Seattle, she was Helen Sanchez. She married a retired old man who had properties. He fell down the stairs after changing his will. In Austin, before meeting your son, she was Carla Miller. An entire family accuses her of poisoning her grandmother to take her house, and she has never been arrested. She always changes her identity. She always moves to a different state, and she always leaves very clean tracks. But this time, it is different. Why? Because you are alive, Mrs. Miller, and because we have physical evidence. Patricia pulled out more documents. We obtained medical records from the gentleman in Phoenix and the one in Las Vegas. In both cases, they had abnormal levels of digitalis in their blood, the same compound found in certain heart medications when administered in incorrect doses. Like the medication she is giving me. Exactly. But we need more evidence to build a solid case. Frank leaned forward. "Carol, would you be willing to do something dangerous but necessary?" "What sort of thing? We want you to organize a family dinner when Valerie returns. A dinner where we can record a confession, how we are going to make her believe you are dying, that the medication is finally working, and that you only have days left to live. In situations like this, criminals often get overconfident and talk too much," Patricia added. "We will have the house monitored audio and video recordings and medical personnel on alert. We will not allow anything to happen to you, but we need her to believe she is winning." My heart was beating like a drum. If we do this, can we catch her? Not just her Carol. We will be able to dismantle her entire operation and prevent her from claiming more victims. I thought about all the families she had destroyed, all the elderly people who had died alone and confused because of this predator. "All right," I said with a firm voice. "Let us do it." The trap was ready. We just needed the spider to fall into her own web. What Patricia revealed to me the next day made me understand that my nightmare was much bigger and more twisted than I ever imagined. Carol the detective told me with a very serious face, "There is something else you need to know about Valerie. Something that completely changes the landscape." We were sitting in my kitchen with all the curtains drawn. Frank had gone out to get more information from the Public Records Office. Her real name is Valerie Stone, but she is not just a common con artist. Patricia pulled out a photograph of a woman who looked a lot like Valerie but 20 years older. This is her mother, Rose Stone, also known as the Black Widow of Nevada. During the 90s and the 2000s, she murdered 7 elderly husbands to keep their properties. She is serving a life sentence in a maximum security prison. My breath caught in my throat. Valerie learned the family business as a child, but she is smarter than her mother. More calculating, more patient. What do you mean Rose killed quickly, almost always with obvious poison? That is why she was caught. Valerie perfected the method. She uses legitimate medication in incorrect doses. She simulates accidents. She creates perfect stories. And she never acts alone. She does not act alone. Patricia put more photos on the table. You know, Mr. Martin from the bank, right? His real name is Robert Founts, Valerie's accomplice for 5 years. He is not a bank employee. He is an actor who rents temporary offices to stage these performances. My world collapsed again. The man who had humiliated me, who had made me sign my own ruin, was part of the theater. And the doctor who supposedly changed my medication. Dr. Hector Sanders, also a fake. He is a retired nurse expelled for malpractice. He handles the medical side of the plan. My God. How many people are involved? At least 8 that we have identified. It is an organized criminal network that specializes in vulnerable elderly people with valuable properties. Patricia showed me a map of the United States with red dots marked on it. In the last 7 years, they have operated in 12 different states, always the same pattern. An attractive woman seduces a mature man with money or infiltrates a family as the perfect daughter-in-law. Then comes the isolation, the psychological manipulation, the forged documents, and finally the death that seems natural. How much money have they stolen conservatively? More than $15 million. Real estate, life insurance policies, bank accounts, family businesses. They have destroyed at least 23 families that we know of. My legs trembled so much that I had to sit down. But there is something else, Carol. Something that makes your case special. What Valerie did not choose you at random. She specifically investigated your family. Why? Patricia took a deep breath before answering. Do you remember your brother, Mike, who died in a car accident 20 years ago? Of course. He was my younger brother. It was not an accident, Carol. Mike discovered a money laundering ring at the company where he worked. He was about to report them when he died. That company had connections to the criminal organization that Valerie's family belongs to. I felt like I was running out of air. Mike was going to inherit this house if something happened to you. His death was no coincidence. And now, 20 years later, Valerie came to finish what they could not complete back then. You are saying they killed my brother, and now they want to kill you. Not just for the money, Carol. It is revenge. Your family got in the way of their business 2 decades ago, and they never forget. For the first time in this nightmare, I did not feel fear. I felt pure fury. My brother Mike had died because of these monsters, and now they wanted to complete their vengeance by killing me. But this time, the surprise would be mine. After knowing the truth about my brother Mike's death, something changed inside me forever. I was no longer just an old woman defending her assets. I was a woman seeking justice for 20 years of pain. Frank, I told the lawyer with a determination I had not felt in decades. I want that wretched woman to pay for everything. For my brother, for all her victims, for every tear she made me shed. Carol, I understand your anger, but we have to be very careful. No, Frank. No more being careful. No more fear. We are going to end this once and for all. Patricia looked at me with respect. What do you have in mind, Mrs. Miller? Valerie returns tomorrow, Friday. I am going to organize a family dinner on Saturday night. I will tell her that I feel very sick, that I think my time is running out, and that I want to say goodbye to the family with a special meal. And then, during the dinner, I am going to make her believe that I need to change my will urgently, that I want to leave everything to her officially without Richard finding out. That will excite her so much that she will lower her guard. Frank nodded slowly. It is risky, Carol. If she suspects anything, she will not suspect. For 3 years, she has seen me as a stupid and manipulable old woman. Her arrogance will be her downfall. Patricia took out some small devices. We are going to fill the house with hidden microphones and cameras. We need her to admit everything, the fraud, the altered medication, the other murders, and especially what happened to your brother Mike. We spent all of Thursday afternoon preparing the house. We installed cameras as small as buttons in the living room, the dining room, and the kitchen. Directional microphones in the plants. What irony, and a recording device in my pearl necklace that Frank had specially made. And if she tries to kill me that same night, I asked. We will have 3 undercover agents watching from outside, Patricia reassured me. At the slightest sign of danger, we enter. Besides, you will carry a panic button in your sleeve. On Friday afternoon, Valerie arrived from Miami with her usual smile loaded with cheap gifts and expensive lies. Mom, how are you? Did you behave yourself while I was gone? I looked at her with eyes that I hoped looked weak and tired. Oh, honey, I do not feel well at all. I think my time is finally coming. I saw a strange glint in her eyes. Satisfaction. Do not say that, Carol. You just need to rest more. Valerie, I want to ask you something. Could we have a special dinner tomorrow? Invite Richard, maybe my sister Hope. I feel like I need to say goodbye to everyone. Of course, Mom. What do you want to cook your favorite dish? My grandmother's secret pot roast, the recipe I have never taught anyone. Her eyes lit up. She was surely thinking that after killing me, she could brag about knowing the secret family recipe. I would love to learn it. Carol. That night, while she slept believing herself the victor, I mentally reviewed every detail of the plan. I would have only one chance to get justice. The next day, Saturday morning, I began my final performance. Valerie, I said with a broken voice, I need to tell you something very important about my will. She approached like a vulture smelling carrion. What is it, Mom? I do not want Richard to inherit anything. He has never valued me like you do. I want to leave everything to you, but without him finding out. Her smile was the most sinister thing I have ever seen in my life. Carol, you do not have to worry about that. I do have to worry. Tonight after dinner, when everyone leaves, I want us to call the notary. I have his emergency number. The trap was set. All that was missing was for her to fall. Saturday night arrived like Judgment Day. At 7 o'clock sharp, my house filled with guests who did not know they were about to witness the unmasking of the century. Richard arrived on time with flowers. My sister Hope brought her famous pecan pie. And the neighbors that Valerie hated so much showed up with bottles of wine. What she did not know was that among the guests were 3 undercover agents, Hope's cousin, the new neighbor from across the street, and my niece's boyfriend. What a lovely gathering, Valerie said with her fake smile. But I noticed nervousness in her eyes. Such a large audience was not in her plans. My daughter, I said with a weak voice but audible to everyone. Will you help me with the roast in the kitchen? I want to teach you my grandmother's secrets before it is too late. In the kitchen, away from the others but not from the microphones, my masterpiece began. Valerie, I am very sick, I whispered. The doctors gave me a maximum of 1 month to live. Her eyes shone with a sinister light. Oh, Mom, do not say that. That is why I need to fix the will tonight. I do not want Richard to keep anything after how he has treated me. Carol, she said, lowering her voice. You know I have always taken care of you better than your own son. I know, honey. That is why I want to leave you everything. The house, my savings, the life insurance policies. Life insurance policies. Yes, I have 3 policies. Together they add up to almost $1 million. I saw her pupils dilate. Money was her drug. Carol, are you sure you want to do this? Completely sure. But I need to ask you something. What the medication you have been giving me, is it true that it is helping me? There was a long silence. Too long. Of course it is helping you, Mom. It is just that sometimes I feel like it does me more harm than good. Carol, she said with a cruel smile I had never seen before. At your age, all medication does harm, but it is necessary to accelerate the natural process. Bingo. The first recorded confession. Accelerate the process. Yes. Carol, at 67 years old with your weak heart, it is better not to suffer too much. The medication I give you helps you rest more easily. My blood was boiling, but I kept my voice weak, like what happened to my brother Mike 20 years ago. She froze. What are you saying? Mike was also taking heart medication before his accident. Carol, you are delirious. Is it true that you knew Mike Valerie? Her face changed completely. The mask fell off. What do you know about Mike? She asked me with a cold, threatening voice. I know it was not an accident. I know someone killed him because he was going to report the money laundering. You are crazy, old woman. I know your mother is in prison. I know your name is Valerie Stone. I know you have killed 23 people in 7 years. Her face transformed into something monstrous. How? Who told you I know that Mr. Martin is a fake? I know you never legally married Richard. I know you plan to kill me to collect the life insurance. Valerie pulled a kitchen knife and put it to my neck. You damn nosy old woman, I should have killed you months ago, like you killed Mike. Your stupid brother did not know when to keep his mouth shut. At that moment, the doors burst open and the agents entered with guns raised. Police dropped the weapon. Valerie tried to cut my throat, but the bulletproof vest I wore hidden under my dress protected me while the officers disarmed her. This crazy old woman set a trap for me, she screamed while they handcuffed her. Yes, I said, looking her in the eyes, this crazy old woman defeated you. After they took Valerie away handcuffed and screaming like a madwoman, Richard hugged me crying like when he was a child. Mom, forgive me. Forgive me, please. How could I be so blind? Calm down, son, I said, stroking his hair. You were not the first, nor will you be the last to be deceived by a woman like that. But the moment had arrived for the revelation that was going to surprise everyone, including Frank and Patricia. There is something you all need to know, I said loudly, so the guests, the agents, and my family could hear me. Carol, Patricia said to me, it is no longer necessary to... Yes, it is necessary, I interrupted her. During these 3 years, everyone believed I was a vulnerable and confused old woman. Even you who helped me thought I had been an innocent victim. Frank looked at me strangely. What do you mean, Carol? I mean that I was never as helpless as I appeared. I walked toward the study that Valerie had turned into her private office and took out a safe hidden behind the books. Before marrying my husband, I worked for 25 years at the National Bank as a financial fraud investigator. Everyone looked at me with their mouths open. I detected the first signs of Valerie's scam 2 months after meeting her. What Richard exclaimed. Son, when someone works for so long investigating financial criminals, they develop a very fine-tuned instinct. The fake documents for the first loan you asked for to buy her engagement ring had errors that only a professional could detect. I opened the safe and took out folders full of documents. For 2.5 years, I documented every single one of her lies, every suspicious transaction, every psychological manipulation. I took photographs of every document she made me sign before signing it. Patricia approached, incredulous. Are you saying you knew everything from the beginning? Not everything, but enough. I knew she was a professional con artist. What I did not know was that she had killed my brother Mike, nor that she planned to murder me. I showed Frank a thick folder. Here are the real copies of all the documents I signed. I took the precaution of filming myself signing only the first page and leaving the others blank. The documents she used to rob me are legally invalid. But Carol, my sister Hope, exclaimed, "Why didn't you tell us anything? Because I needed solid evidence to destroy her completely. If I acted too soon, she would have simply fled and started over in another state with other victims." I took out another folder. Furthermore, I contacted the families of the previous victims 6 months ago. Together, we built a federal case that is not only going to put her in prison for life, but is going to dismantle her entire criminal organization. Richard was still in shock. Mom, but the medication. The confusion. The things you forgot. All acted my son. Every episode of confusion, every moment of weakness, every convenient lapse of memory. I needed her to believe that her plan was working, so she would get confident and make mistakes. I took out the last folder, the most important one, and here is the evidence that your brother Mike was murdered 20 years ago by the same criminal organization. With Valerie's confession tonight, we can finally get justice for him too. Patricia looked at me with a mixture of admiration and disbelief. Mrs. Miller, you used us too. I needed you for the legal and police part that I could not handle alone, but the underlying plan was always mine. Frank laughed with respect. Carol, you just staged the most brilliant undercover operation I have seen in my 30-year career. 40 years of investigating criminals are not forgotten, Frank. I just needed the perfect moment to strike. Divine justice had arrived. And it had arrived with 67 years of experience and patience of steel. 3 weeks after Valerie's arrest, I found myself at the federal courthouse dressed in my best black suit, watching the criminal empire that had destroyed so many families crumble completely. The room was full. Relatives of the victims who had traveled from all over the country to see justice, journalists from the main news channels, and in the defendant's dock, Valerie Stone, now without makeup, without fake jewelry, without that manipulative smile she had perfected for years. The defendant, the federal judge declared with a solemn voice, is found guilty of 15 counts of first-degree murder, 47 counts of major fraud, 23 counts of document forgery, and 12 counts of money laundering. Valerie did not look up. For the first time in her life, she had no words, no excuses, no performance to save her. The total amount of the fraud rises to $18.7 million stolen from 31 families over a period of 8 years. The federal prosecutor stood up, Your Honor. This woman led a criminal organization that systematically destroyed entire families. She showed no mercy toward vulnerable elderly people, nor remorse for her actions. We request the maximum penalty. When it was my turn to give my testimony as the primary victim, I walked toward the stand with the dignity I had fought so hard to recover. For 3 years, I said directly to the judge, but my eyes were locked on Valerie. This woman not only tried to steal my assets and my life, she tried to steal my dignity, my sanity, and my self-respect. I saw Valerie finally look up. Her eyes no longer had that evil spark. There was only fear. She made me believe that my 67-year-old mind was no longer good for anything, that I was a burden to my family, that my existence was a hindrance that had to be eliminated. My voice grew stronger, but the most unforgivable thing is that she murdered my brother Mike 20 years ago when he was just a young man of 35 with his whole life ahead of him. That is why I am not asking for justice only for myself. I ask for justice for him, for all the victims who can no longer speak. The judge nodded gravely. Do you have anything to say in your defense, Mrs. Stone? Valerie stood up trembling. I needed the money. Why did you need to murder elderly people? The judge asked her harshly. My mother is sick in prison. The medication is expensive. Your mother is serving a life sentence for the same crimes you committed. There is no valid excuse for what you did. When the moment of sentencing arrived, the silence in the room was tomb-like. Valerie Stone, for the crimes of which you have been found guilty, I sentence you to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, plus 450 years in prison for the additional charges. A murmur of satisfaction ran through the room. Additionally, you must return the total of the $18.7 million stolen, plus $5.2 million in punitive damages to the affected families. But the judge had not finished. Given the particularly cruel nature of your crimes and the fact that you plan to murder more victims, I order that you serve your sentence in a maximum security regime with solitary confinement during the first 10 years. When they took her away in handcuffs, Valerie looked at me one last time. She was no longer the confident and manipulative woman who had controlled my house for 3 years. She was a destroyed woman who had lost everything. Carol, she whispered to me when she passed by my side. This does not end here. For me, it is over. I replied without blinking. Now you are going to live in an 8-by-8-foot cell for the rest of your life, thinking every day about all the families you destroyed. Justice had triumphed. But my story was just beginning. 6 months have passed since Valerie was sentenced, and as I write these lines in my recovered house, I can say with absolute certainty that this experience, however terrible it was, gave me back something I thought lost forever: my power. For 67 years, I had been the obedient wife, the sacrificing mother, the old woman who accepts her place in silence. Valerie made me believe that my time of being relevant had ended, that my only function was to wait for death without bothering anyone. How wrong she was. Today my house is full of life again. Richard and I are rebuilding our relationship brick by brick, conversation by conversation. He is in therapy to heal the damage caused by being manipulated for 3 years. And I accompany him in that process with the patience that only a mother can have. Mom, he told me a week ago while we were drinking coffee in the garden, how could you forgive me for failing you so much? My son, I replied, taking his hand. Valerie was a professional predator. You were her victim as much as I was. The difference is that I had the tools to recognize her, and you did not. My sister Hope comes to have lunch every Sunday again. My friends from the prayer group return on Wednesdays. The neighbors drop by to drink coffee and chat. My house went back to being what it always was, a home full of love and laughter. But the most important thing is what I am doing with this second chance at life. With the $127,000 I recovered plus $200,000 in punitive damages awarded to me by the court, I created the Mike Miller Foundation for the Protection of the Elderly. We work with 3 main objectives. First, we educate families on how to detect scammers who take advantage of older people. We give talks at community centers, churches, and nursing homes about the warning signs. Second, we offer free legal advice for elderly people who suspect they are victims of family fraud. We have a team of volunteer lawyers, including Frank, who handle these cases at no cost. Third, and most importantly for me, we help elderly people maintain their independence and dignity without becoming vulnerable. We teach them to manage their finances securely, to protect their important documents, and to recognize when someone is manipulating them psychologically. In these 6 months, we have helped 47 families detect and stop fraud attempts. We've managed to get 12 more scammers arrested, and we have returned almost $3 million to victims who believed they would never recover their assets. But the biggest lesson I want to share is not about money or legal justice. It is about the power of trusting our instincts. For years, society tells us that when we get old, our opinion is worth less, our experience is obsolete, our instincts no longer serve. They convince us that we must let others take decisions for us for our own good. That's a lie. At 67 years old, I have more wisdom, more experience, and more mental clarity than at 30. I have lived long enough to recognize patterns, to distinguish between truth and manipulation, to know when something is not right. If there is something I want women my age to understand, it is this. Never ever let anyone make you feel useless, confused, or irrelevant just because of your age. You have survived decades of life. You have raised children, you have worked, you have loved, you have lost, you have learned. That experience is your power, not your weakness. And if there is something I want young people to understand, it is this. Respect your elders, but above all, listen to them. When an old woman tells you that something is not right, she is probably right. Valerie thought she could take advantage of a helpless little old lady. She was wrong. This little old lady had claws, and she used them. End of the story of Carol Miller. It reminds us that wisdom has no retirement age, and that underestimating an older woman can be the most expensive mistake you make in your life.